Julie Zhang, and this is Bloomberg Technology. Coming up, GoPro slashes its workforce looking to turn a profit. We'll put the action camera company in focus ahead. Plus, Nutanix aces its first earnings test, but investors may have missed the call. We'll ask the CEO why shares are down at the cloud company. And after a series of roadblocks from regulators, one of the most famous hackers in the world shares the secrets of driverless car tech with the masses. He'll tell us why ahead. Now to our top story. GoPro announces restructuring plans and narrows its focus. It is cutting its workforce by 15% and shutting down its entertainment division with the goal to turn a profit, still in its sights. Just a few months back, the company was singing a different tune. I spoke to CEO Nick Woodman in September. He was optimistic and ambitious about the future.
We've got a terrific vision for the company. If there was an opportunity that dramatically helped us accelerate our vision and realize GoPro on some massively larger scale than we were able to alone, that might be something that's interesting, but we're doing such a great job of executing against our vision ourselves. We're very excited about the future as a standalone company.
Joining me now to discuss GoPro's latest moves, Brad Erickson, analyst at Crest Securities. Brad, you've been neutral on the stock. You said you wanted to wait to see reception to the new cameras, the drone. Now with this news today, how does that impact your outlook?
You know, it's interesting, obviously a pre-announcement generally drives somewhat of a change. And from our perspective, the news out this morning from GoPro really wasn't that much of a change. The 35% sales growth relative to the year-ago quarter, which saw sell-through only of about 1.2 or 1.3 million units, we think the number may need to even be higher than that. Getting out of the entertainment business, that business really wasn't driving that much revenue, so really no impact there. And then the workforce reduction, they had already really guided to the OPEX target for 2017, the lower operating expenses. And so telling the market today that they're going to let 15% of the company go is really just the mechanism by which they'll achieve those targets. So from our perspective, there wasn't a ton incremental there today.
They had to recall 2,500 drones after some of them lost power mid-air. Now they're facing a class action lawsuit over this. I mean, how concerning is that to you when, these are products that are supposed to be the future of the company?
Certainly it's a concern if you're an investor. I would say around the drone at this point, there just isn't all that much expectation built in. Investors aren't really giving them much credit there. So, if they can come out with a product, I don't think it's looking great for this holiday, but if they can get something out next year and drive at least a little bit of traction in that market, that could certainly help. But I think in the near term, the company's message seemed to be a prudent one this morning, which is they're really narrowing their focus, really concentrating on capture device sales, which I think is the best course of action here at this point.
So let's talk about the cameras. What's your outlook for the holiday quarter? You've got some new competition out there, different competition, Snap Spectacles, for example. How do you think the new cameras will actually do this holiday?
Yeah, we've done a lot of our own research to date, and what we're finding is we think the Hero 5 Black is doing fairly well at this point. I would say about in line with expectations. We think the Hero 5 Session is probably lagging expectations somewhat. Our estimate, a Q4 estimate, is a bit below the street. I think we're looking for about 1.9 million units, and the street's probably closer to like 2.1 or 2.2, somewhere in there. So, we think things are likely to come up a little bit soft here in the holiday quarter at this point.
Now, about 40% of GoPro stock is currently sold short. That is a huge position. It causes a lot of volatility. Do you see the company shaking off that short interest?
It's difficult with these types of hardware-based models. If the company goes out and sells a ton of cameras in the holiday quarter, that's awesome. The problem is then we got to turn around and do the same thing all over again in the March quarter and the June quarter, and thus the sort of ongoing struggle with these hardware-type models. We do think there is a sustainable market here for action cameras going forward, but the issue is that if they continue to see sort of price erosion looking out to 2017 and they face further unit declines, I wouldn't expect that short interest to decline meaningfully on an ongoing basis.
How optimistic are you about the company returning to profitability next year?
I think they're selling a good product at a 40, call it 40-something plus percentage gross margin percentage. So, if they cut their operating expenses enough, sure, you can run this company at a profitable level. The issue then just becomes is that if you're running profitability on a sort of stagnant revenue level, there's really no growth for the future, and tough to find the incremental buyer of the stock there.
All right, we'll continue to follow. Brad Erickson, analyst at Pacific Crest Securities. Thanks, Brad, so much for stopping by.
Thanks for having me.
Another story we are watching, Netflix is appealing to those binge watchers who don't have Wi-Fi. The company, which currently boasts more than 87 million customers globally, says it's making some TV shows and movies available to watch offline. This appeals to customers in emerging markets where internet service is sometimes unreliable. Netflix has been stepping up its push for more customers internationally and fighting off rising competition from other streaming services like Amazon. Coming up, he is known as the hacking boy genius who cracked the iPhone and turned down a job from Elon Musk. George Hotz gives us an update on his regulation-defying self-driving car technology. This is Bloomberg.
Here we go. Woo! Woo!
Don't hit the van! Don't hit the van!
Oh, nice. Very nice.
Whoa! That's closer than it should have gone.
On today's funding board, Uber rival Get just got a $100 million venture loan from Russia's largest bank. Get will use that money to further expand in Russia, where this month it doubled the number of cities it operates in. Sberbank said the 7-year loan gives it an option for an undisclosed number of Get shares. Get now operates in more Russian cities than Uber or local rival Yandex Taxi. Well, hacker George Hotz shocked the auto industry last year when he showed off a working autonomous car jury-rigged in his own garage. He went on to reportedly turn down a job from Elon Musk, instead founding his own company, Comma.ai, that promised to sell self-driving software kits for $999. That plan came to a screeching halt last month when U.S. regulators sent Hotz a warning over Comma One's safety concerns. He scrapped the plan and tweeted, would much rather spend my life building amazing tech than dealing with regulators and lawyers. It isn't worth it. Comma.ai will be exploring other markets and products. Hello from Shenzhen, China. But not so fast. Hotz came back today announcing a plan to open source his self-driving software, giving it away for free. He's here with me now in the studio to explain. So you're giving away the software for free, and you have with you the hardware. You're giving away the plans for the hardware for free. Yep. That will turn any car into a self-driving car.
Well, okay, let's qualify both of those statements. It supports right now select Hondas and Acuras, and self-driving cars, so you still have to pay attention at all times. But there's certain scenarios that you can take your hands off the wheel and not touch either pedal, and the car will drive by itself.
Okay, so regulators weren't too happy about your original plan. How do they feel about this one?
Well, I don't know. I haven't heard from them. The real thing, the regulators' response, I thought was very reasonable. The problem was when it came. We were not selling a product. We were not even taking pre-orders for a product, and they were already asking me for things like a user manual under oath. Easier to just cancel and pivot.
So haven't you just really upped the ante here, and do you expect to get more than just a warning?
No, I mean, we're not selling a product. NHTSA regulates the sales of products using the Interstate Commerce Clause. We are just making plans available for free on the internet. That's a whole lot more like free speech.
Isn't it a little like opening Pandora's box, though, telling everyone, hey, here's how you can make a self-driving car? You're basically allowing them to do something that's illegal.
Well, okay, so first off, it's not illegal. You are responsible for complying with local laws and regulations. My understanding is if somebody in California went and built one of these, again, I'm not a lawyer, but I think that would be legal because technically it's only an adaptive cruise control and lane keep assist, which are explicitly exempt under California law from being an autonomous vehicle. And California has the most restrictive laws. Somewhere like Texas, that's why Google and Uber are testing down there.
Have you made any commitment to NHTSA not to test yourself?
No, NHTSA does not regulate testing. The only thing I told NHTSA was that we would notify them before we were making a product available for sale in the US, and we're not doing that.
So what kind of interest have you gotten?
We just open sourced it this morning.
I mean, are people excited? I mean, what's been the
Absolutely.
response?
Yeah, I mean, already we have some people on our forums talking about building them, porting them to the old Tesla that didn't have autopilot. That's the really great thing about it being open. Those other cars that we don't support, people can download our code and add support for them.
So when you said hello from Shenzhen, China, what did you mean? What were you doing there?
I was in Shenzhen, China.
And more, I mean, were you working on self-driving car tech there? Were you looking into regulations there?
We were looking for manufacturing partners. I did meet with a few companies there as well. I'm not going to say who, but you know, the other thing about open sourcing this is there's so many more jurisdictions than the U.S. You know, the U.S. government may not like what I am doing, but some other government may, and hey, we'd love to work with you.
Is China more open to it?
I don't know. To be honest, I do not believe that it would be easier to navigate the regulatory environment in China, where I don't speak Chinese, versus the U.S., where I speak English. But I don't know.
So, you know, folks like you have been willing to challenge regulators, but more broadly, you know, people don't want to take that kind of risk. And I wonder, how do you think regulations are potentially holding back self-driving car technology?
I mean, again, I can really only comment on my specific case. On my specific case, they tried to regulate a product that was not even available for sale. They actually gave me 10 days to, under oath, provide them the user manual for a product I'm not even taking orders for. So if I make a mistake in the user manual, they're going to Martha Stewart me, you know? So yeah, premature. I think that was the problem.
You have said that Elon Musk offered you a job to build self-driving car software for Tesla with a multi-million-dollar bonus. You turned it down. You've also said that your software is just as good as the latest Tesla autopilot.
I haven't said the latest, the previous Tesla autopilot.
So how does it compare to the latest?
Autopilot's a bit better. Autopilot's a bit better because one of the key things they're doing is fleet learning. All of their autopilot cars are helping to train the other autopilot cars. Once a bunch of people start building these, they communicate with our network. We train, we improve, we ship out. We'll be able to beat autopilot.
So what's your relationship with Musk and Tesla today?
I don't know. I haven't heard from them.
No new offers?
No.
Now, interestingly, President-elect Trump has nominated Elaine Chao to to run the Department of Transportation. Do you have any inkling of what she might mean for this industry?
I looked into her policy positions a little bit. I couldn't find that much. The woman who he chose to lead the Transition Committee on Transportation, she came from a libertarian think tank who criticized California's steering wheel and pedal policy for being overly restrictive, which I agree with. There has not been a single death in autonomous vehicles to date. You can talk about the autopilot one, but that's a lot more of a cruise control system than, you know, a true autonomous vehicle. So to try to regulate something that has not only never caused a public safety problem, but also could potentially solve a huge public safety problem, to me seems very premature, and I think that's the key word.
Let's talk about the Tesla autopilot death that you just referred to. There's a debate about semi-autonomous versus fully autonomous. What's safer? What do you think is safer? What do you think most cars of the future will be? Fully or semi-autonomous?
Well, there's a long path to get to fully autonomous, and I do not believe that there is a path to fully autonomous cars without first going through semi-autonomous. I think Tesla's plan for attacking the whole problem is brilliant and going to succeed. If Tesla is the iOS, we want to be the Android. You know what? We'll be the ones getting the 80%. We'll be a little bit worse for a bit, but I mean, that's kind of the plan.
All right, George Hotz, Comma.ai, one of the most famous hackers in the world. George, great to have you here on the show. Thanks so much for stopping by. Coming up, Nutanix, one of 2016's elite tech IPOs, turns in its first quarterly report. CEO Dheeraj Pandey joins me next. This is Bloomberg.
Hi, my name's Ashley.
Hello, Ashley. I am a socially intelligent robot.
Ashley Vance is going to the farthest corners of Earth.
This is the UFO.
What am I gonna find inside? You get Wi-Fi out here?
To find the mad scientists, the tech geniuses, and the dreamers of tomorrow.
It's about high-tech innovation and doing really, really clever things.
Hello World, Friday on Bloomberg.
Microsoft held its annual meeting Wednesday, and one of the biggest topics covered was its cloud services. The company is on course to pull in $20 billion in annual sales from its corporate cloud business by 2018. Speaking at the meeting, CEO Satya Nadella described the massive scope of the plans.
By 2025, our society will produce 180 zettabytes of data. In fact, we're running out of words to describe the number of bytes we're gathering. Our role is to ensure that the data is not just an exhaust, but is converted into actionable, helpful insights and intelligence.
And sticking with cloud computing, Nutanix is out with its first quarterly report as a public company. Investors sent shares lower in Wednesday trade after the company posted a wider loss. Joining us now from Scottsdale, Arizona for an exclusive interview, Nutanix CEO Dheeraj Pandey. Dheeraj, thank you so much for joining us today on the show. So a strong report, but investors didn't love it. What's going on?
Well, I think it's just been 24 hours since the results. We look at things on a kind of longer term, so next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. That's the way stocks should be looked at as opposed to 24 hours.
So Nutanix shares soared post-IPO, but they are down from the peak. In fact, they rose so much, it surprised a lot of people in the market, and there was talk that perhaps shares were initially mispriced. Talk to us about your vision for the hybrid cloud and how it plays out in the realm of Microsoft and Amazon and Google, which are at war for territory here.
I mean, if you think about it, right now there's one real leader in cloud, and that's AWS. Microsoft has done a lot of work with O365, which is their Office application cloud, and then they have Dynamics CRM, but Azure is still supposed to be tested at scale, which it hasn't, and Google is still in the very early days of thinking about what products, what services is going to build in the cloud itself. So at scale, there's only one cloud, that's Amazon. And even that has not been tested for the global 5,000. I mean, they have some really large customers, 10, 15, 20 of those, that probably drive majority of the revenue from. So what is going to look for the global 2,000, the global 5,000, which spends, probably 80% of the IT spend comes from these 5,000 companies. And they have complexity of different kinds, which is not what the long tail of SMB customers of Amazon see, or these internet companies that Amazon actually has. I think that's where the real frontier of cloud really is going to be. What do you do about legacy? What do you do about operating in 100 countries? What do you do about hybrid networking, hybrid security? Everything has to become hybrid, and the operating system has to straddle the two sides of the aisle itself. And this is a massive computer science problem, a massive user interface design problem that nobody's really scratched the surface of yet.
So how do you see the cloud and the hybrid cloud evolving? Where are we in 5 to 10 years when it comes to the cloud?
It's very similar to in your last guest that you had on your program, talking about how you go from current cars to semi-autonomous to autonomous. I think there's a very similar journey here. It's not like all of computing that used to be on-prem is going to all of a sudden become rented, because there's value in owning and renting. Things that people want to own because they're predictable. It's like you don't want to go and rent a hotel for 3-5 years if you know you're going to live at a place, or you're not going to rent a car for 3-5 years if you know you need a car for the next 3-5 years. So I think there's going to be this yin-yang between owning and renting that will basically shake itself up in the next 3 to 5 years.
And do you think owning will go away at some point?
I don't think so, because if you think of, again, going back to, you own a house, you own a car. It's not like these things are going to go away simply because there's Uber and Airbnb. I think computing is very similar. When you know that you're going to spend this much and your workloads are this predictable, it's much cheaper to own than to rent, because renting has this sort of extra premium that's attached to it in terms of pricing and the cost, that you might just pull the plug tomorrow and somebody needs to make money off of that optionality, which is what happens with hotel rooms and rental cars and so on.
Now, you went public just ahead of the election, and I'm curious what advice you would have for companies and CEOs who are considering doing this right now, especially enterprise companies. what might you do differently, and what might you recommend in this political environment?
Well, I think the new political environment probably doesn't change much in terms of IPOs, but obviously there's some policy decisions that will actually happen in the coming, probably year or two around immigration, around manufacturing more in the U.S., things of that nature. Maybe what happens when U.S. and Russia become friends as opposed to enemies that they are today. I think there's a lot of things that are up in the air right now about business in Russia and in CIS states and so on. But all in all, I think the IPO experience actually taught me that you want to have a win-win relationship with investors as opposed to trying to squeeze it all. And you want to really understand that your employees and customers and partners are still as important as stakeholders as they were when you're a private company, so that you don't over-rotate on this new stakeholder and try to just maximize the shareholder value when you know that it's actually a second-order benefit, and the first order is employees, customers, and partners.
All right. Dheeraj Pandey, CEO of Nutanix, an exclusive interview. Thanks so much for joining us. Coming up, Malik of True Ventures talking about Trump and Silicon Valley. This is Bloomberg.
I'm Christine Harvey, and you're watching Bloomberg Technology. Let's begin with a check of your first word news. The pilot of a chartered plane that went down with 77 people aboard, including a Brazilian soccer team, told air traffic controllers he'd run out of fuel moments before crashing into the Andes. A recording from the air traffic tower leaked to a Colombian radio station said the pilot repeatedly requested permission to land due to a total electrical failure and lack of fuel. Only 6 people survived. Fidel Castro's ashes have begun a 4-day journey across the country to a final resting place in the city of Santiago. Crowds waved Cuban flags and chanted Fidel as the convoy passed by. The route traces the victory tour Castro and his rebels took after overthrowing the Batista government in 1959. Zimbabwean police resorted to tear gas and water cannons to break up scores of activists protesting the new local currency. The so-called bond notes introduced Monday is the first time the country has managed its own currency since 2009, when entire savings and pensions were wiped out because of hyperinflation the IMF pegged at 500 billion%. A Saudi prince has issued a public call for women to be allowed to drive in the conservative kingdom. Prince Al-Walid bin Talal tweeted the demand, "Stop the debate, time for women to drive." He said that in Arabic and English. Saudi Arabia is the only country in the world that does not allow women to drive. Global news 24 hours a day, powered by more than 2,600 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Christine Harvey. This is Bloomberg. And it's just after 7:30 Thursday morning here in Hong Kong, 10:30 in Sydney, where I'm joined by Bloomberg's Paul Allen with a look at the markets. Paul, good morning.
Good morning, Christine. Well, the ASX off to a very bright start after 35 minutes of trading, up 2/3%. And as you'd expect, it's a roll call of the energy stocks leading the gains. Beach Energy and Santos both are better than 10% right now. Fortescue Metals also doing reasonably well. That's despite the price of iron ore slumping almost 7% overnight. That's iron ore's steepest decline since March. Rio Tinto also showing some gains, up nearly 2%. This is after announcing they plan to charge a premium for Pilbara blend fines. This is the world's most traded iron ore product, and that's to stamp out what Rio sees as a growing trend of Chinese steel mills marking up and selling on that product. Also waiting on data out of China today, manufacturing and non-manufacturing PMI expected to pull back a little but still show signs of growth. I'm Paul Allen in Sydney. More from Bloomberg Technology next.
This is Bloomberg Technology. I'm Emily Chang. In Silicon Valley, technologies like AI and robotics are seen as innovative, but in other parts of the country, they're job killers. In the tech industries, is the tech industry's lack of empathy a real issue? If so, how much will that miscalculation cost the industry? Joining me now, True Ventures partner Malik, who recently wrote a piece for The New Yorker titled "Silicon Valley Has an Empathy Vacuum." Great to have you back here on the show. So you opened the piece talking about the quiet and depression that has swept Silicon Valley since the election. And I'm curious, what do you mean by an empathy vacuum? Explain.
I feel that, you know, in the aftermath of the election, the response from Silicon Valley was as if we could have done more, or as if we could have given more money. And there was a lot of sense of self-righteousness about as if we didn't do enough from the point of election. And there was a lot of debate on Facebook and Twitter, and people who have called friends.
It's still happening.
And for me, it was like I took a week to kind of step back and say, wait, why are we not talking about what is the actual cause of why a large portion of our society voted a certain way? And the more you realize it, it is coming from the place of people have very little hope, they have no jobs, the economic prospects are dark, and people are fearful. And to kind of make it all about Silicon Valley is the wrong way to think about it. I actually think that we are contributing to the big changes in the society, so it behooves us as this industry of change to take a step back and perhaps have a sense of understanding and empathy towards people who are, you know, who we tend to impact.
Mark Cuban, who is a huge Hillary supporter, tweeted, "We all need to give President-elect Trump a chance, support the good, lobby against what we disagree on. No one is bigger than us all." I wonder, empathy to what extent? If you know, some of these folks are in jobs and industries that are outdated, you know, do we do this to the extent of holding back progress and holding back innovation?
I have never said that we should hold back progress. We are, and I'm a big believer in disruption on an ongoing basis. It's not, I've made a life and a career out of it. But when I say empathy, we need to actually understand what are the changes which are happening, where they are happening, and are there any things we can do in order to ease some of the pain. I'm not talking about handouts or any of those things. I'm talking about, can companies like Google and Facebook and Microsoft think about setting up smaller development units in, you know, middle part of the country or in south of the, you know, southern part of the country, sort of like how Chattanooga is trying to do, you know, innovative tech startups there. Because even in smaller places, even 2,000 jobs have a knock-on impact on rest of the economy. It, you know, it has an impact on restaurants and other services, construction. So you bring, it's not going to replace every single job, but it does give some direction of hope to people. And similarly, we need to kind of think about retrenchment of a large, you know, a couple of generations of Americans, right? Like, I understand that there are certain people who will not be part of the digital shift, right? But there is a lot of people who are in their late 30s to mid 40s who also need to transition, right? And I think we need to be thinking about, can we redeploy them in a different part of the workforce? But before we do that, we actually have to understand them. We actually have to understand what are their fears. And that's what I mean by empathy.
On that note, you close the piece by saying, let's start by not raging on our Facebook feeds, but instead taking a trip to parts of America where $5 lattes and freshly pressed juices are not perks, but a reminder of haves and have-nots. Otherwise, come 2020, Silicon Valley will become an even bigger villain in the popular imagination, much like its East Coast counterpart, Wall Street. I want to talk to you a little bit about Facebook because I wonder, do you think Facebook should be doing more to monitor fake or inaccurate news? Should they be doing more to make sure we're not living in our own little bubble? Or are they a technology company and not a media company?
I think fake news from my standpoint is more like spam in email. I have consistently maintained that it is platform's job to make sure that misinformation and disinformation does not spread, especially if it is from dubious sources. And that's up to them and how they implement it. If this is a company which can implement censorship in China, I think it can do a lot more from spreading of misinformation in this country. That said, the filter bubbles and all, we create our own filter bubbles. Facebook didn't create that. Rich people always hang out with rich people. That has been going on for thousands of years. The Roman senators always used to hang out with Roman senators. And it's the same thing. The technocrats are hanging out with the technocrats. And that's, and I'm one of those people. It's like I can't be self-righteous about that. But I do think, forget the Facebook, as an individual, we need to learn to listen to other people.
Right.
I think listen better should be the hashtag we should be talking about.
What about Twitter? Deb Lee, the CEO of BET, who's also on the board of Twitter, told BuzzFeed that she believes it helped him win the election. I talked to Ev Williams, the co-founder of Twitter, who said he watched Trump use Twitter with a mixture of bewilderment and fear. You have some people saying Trump's tweets are hateful and abusive, and therefore he should be kicked off Twitter. Should Twitter kick Trump off Twitter?
I think if you think about what Twitter and Facebook, the role they played in the election of the current president-elect, I think they were built for this kind of, sources go direct. I mean, this is what the technology was built for. And the social platforms of distribution of news at network speed.
So should Twitter take a stand against Trump?
Why should they?
If what he is saying violates their rules.
Has it?
I don't know. I mean, it depends
know.
on whether you characterize what he said as abusive and hateful, which supposedly they're trying to cut down on.
Well, I think which is very different than what they've been trying to cut down on. I think, and look, I'm not trying to get into the whole political debate of this, but my view is both Facebook and Twitter proved their true value as platforms for sources go direct in this election. I think, we forgot that in 2008, same Facebook was hailed for electing President Obama, right? So I think we cannot pick and choose as to what the results and the outcomes are, whether we like them or we don't. And I think, bewilderment over, Ev is bewildered by Trump using Twitter. I think he doesn't understand his own platform or what he built, or maybe he just didn't build it. I mean, that's what I look at it, it's just like, okay, we can't get too self-righteous about this.
All right. Oh, Malik, a great read in The New Yorker, partner at True Ventures. Always great to have you here on the show. Well, more spending stats are coming out as the holiday shopping season gets into full swing. ComScore reporting Amazon is once again ranked as the most visited online retail site on Cyber Monday, followed by eBay, Walmart, Kohl's, Target. As we've been reporting, mobile won out as the preferred method of shopping. 89 million people shopped on their device versus 78 million on a desktop. Overall, we're entering a strong holiday shopping season. ComScore reporting $29.7 billion has been spent online to date, up 12% compared to last year. Coming up, co-working spaces are taking off in Asia for small companies and entrepreneurs. Singapore-based Spacemob is looking to expand its business across the Pacific. We'll catch up with the CEO next. This is Bloomberg. In recent months, co-working spaces have become a booming business in Asia. Singapore-based Spacemob just announced a $5.5 million seed round, which is quite a large round for the region. The company plans to use the funds to expand its reach beyond Singapore and across Asia-Pacific. Joining me now from Singapore, Spacemob CEO T. Fuad. T, thank you so much for joining us. So this is the third business you founded. Why co-working space and why Singapore? How much demand is there?
Oh, it is. Oh, thanks for having me, Emily. It is definitely an exciting time for co-working. I think lines are blurring, especially when co-working is being offered to traditionally more entrepreneurs, more SMEs. But even the corporates are looking at co-working as well right now. This is a way for them, essentially, to save capex, a way for them to be flexible, a way for them to basically learn how to be nimble as small companies. So we are helping companies small to become big and big companies to remain small and nimble at the same time.
So WeWork has expanded from the U.S. into China. Is that competition?
Well, it is definitely competition. I think we are very much focused in Southeast Asia initially, but we have the ambition to go beyond Southeast Asia towards Asia Pacific. But it is a very Asia Pacific play. The products and the technology and the value-added services that we provide are very much catered toward Asian companies expanding regionally. And I'm talking about freelancers, SMEs, and large corporations across different industries as well.
Describe the state of the startup landscape in Singapore and Southeast Asia.
Well, it's definitely a good time to be in Southeast Asia, especially in Singapore right now. When I first started at my company 3 years ago, it was very difficult to raise funds. But nowadays, I think the funding amount that's available to startups across this region has raised from $500 million to more than $1 billion right now in just the last 12 months. So you see a lot of startups coming in, and you see a lot of startups getting more mature right now. And we've been seeing a few unicorns that's been come out of Southeast Asia alone.
So the new funding, what do you intend to use it for?
Well, the funding is to allow us to expand aggressively and quickly across Asia Pacific, right? But more importantly, it is for us to invest back into our members and businesses who are with us. And these companies are expanding quickly throughout the region as well. So we have one now in Singapore. We have another one being built in Singapore, and then a first office in Jakarta. And we plan to have another 30 offices in the next 3 years. So it is going to be fun. It's going to be quite exciting to achieve all of that in this short amount of time.
Now, you also founded a company prior called Travelmob that was acquired by HomeAway, and I'm curious what you see in the home sharing space with the rise of Airbnb and their own, global ambitions trying to get into China as well. Do you think Airbnb can succeed in China?
Well, I think everyone's trying to be successful in China. I think it's especially complicated for a non-Chinese company to do business there. But there are definitely ways. There have been success stories. I think one of the biggest things about Airbnb is definitely on the regulation side in China. But I think all these companies are trying to solve that. And I think the trend is definitely here to stay. So I don't see that to be an issue. I see that to be an opportunity for these companies to take on.
And we asked this question when it comes to Uber and ride sharing. Do you see one player rising to the top? Will this be multiple players, or is it a winner-take-all market? How do you see it in home sharing when it comes to Airbnb versus HomeAway versus the other global players out there? Do you think one of them, that a winner will take all, or do you think that there will always be multiple players? If so, how many?
I think Airbnb is definitely getting a very strong brand here in Asia Pacific, but there are various players that are really fighting it out. I mean, back then, Travelmob was really competing really hard with them as well. But I think what's really exciting is, the whole concept and principle of sharing economy has sort of migrated towards the working economy as well. And I think that's why I'm super excited to talk about, Spacemob, where it is about allowing the sharing economy principles to be applied to entrepreneurs, to freelancers, SMEs, and even large corporates here across Asia Pacific.
All right. Spacemob CEO Dheeraj Fuad joining us today. Thank you so much for stopping by. And coming up, we take an exclusive look into Massachusetts-based drone maker SifiWorks and how they've signed deals with the U.S. Army and UPS. This is Bloomberg.
It's 8 a.m. in Dubai, 5 a.m. in London.
Right, just about 2 hours away from the opening for those markets in the Emirates.
So we're seeing people start to talk about this is the beginning of some change in the region. We're seeing some analysts already pinpointing.
Our interest now is the infrastructure projects.
The demand for oil continues to rise.
All in all, the global economy is growing. Alternatives exist.
A story we are watching. The maker of Angry Birds, Rovio, is spinning out a new company called Hatch. It is an app that aims to be the Netflix of mobile gaming. Hatch will team up with China's Huawei to give users a wide range of mobile games from different developers. The idea is to create a new subscription revenue model for mobile games, the hope that developers will one day no longer need to worry about monetizing their games with ads or in-app purchases. Drones are swiftly buzzing into new and unfamiliar territory, from military operations to food delivery. But there is one type of commercial drone you may not have seen yet. It is designed by Massachusetts-based drone maker Sci-Fi Works, which already works with the Air Force and UPS. Bloomberg's Ann Mostu visited the company's FAA-approved test facility for an exclusive look.
Hovering among the trees at peak foliage in this Massachusetts town is an unfamiliar object, a high-powered commercial drone.
So what you're seeing here is our park system. And what the park is it's Persistence Aerial Reconnaissance and Communications Platform.
These drones aren't moving much. In fact, if you look closely, you'll see that they're tethered to the ground. That's because they're designed for surveillance and communication.
The tether allows us to do a couple of things. It allows us to keep the bird in the air indefinitely. It's powering the system. It's also allowing us to move data up and down the tether.
Lance Vandenbroek is CEO of Sci-Fi Works, which makes these drones, which can fly at 400 feet for up to 220 hours. Sci-Fi is partnering with state police, the U.S. Army, and big events such as concerts and marathons.
The screen you're seeing here is actually coming off of that camera. Yeah, we can lock it in a car. This is our payload. This is a CM100 camera. It gives you 30 times optical zoom.
The Danvers, Massachusetts-based Sci-Fi is the latest startup by Helen Grainer.
From a technology point of view, we're rolling right along, or flying right along.
Grainer is an MIT graduate and co-founder of iRobot, the company behind the Roomba and the Packbot used in Iraq and Afghanistan. Sci-Fi has raised $36 million to date from investors and strategic partners such as Motorola and UPS. The drone maker successfully flew its first delivery with UPS this year, medicine to a hard-to-reach island.
I think initially, going to inaccessible areas, emergency relief, rural areas, that's the right place to start. But no, I do envision drones bringing you your Starbucks coffee in the morning, or bringing you your pizza at night, and maybe even bringing you milk that you forgot at the store.
The FAA cleared small commercial drones for takeoff last summer, but the promise of delivery drones has been limited by short battery lives, 45 minutes max. Tethered drones present a new set of challenges, but for Sci-Fi, it's a bigger picture play.
The tethered drones, the persistent drones, they're making our drones really much more rugged, much more reliable. We get much more testing in, and that will lead to much better, safer, more reliable delivery drones.
Big players like Amazon, Alibaba, and other startups are competing in a global market for commercial applications of drone technology that's valued at $127 billion by PricewaterhouseCoopers.
We do work with a number of government agencies, public safety. We're starting to move into the private sector, so we're starting to work with customers in the oil and gas space, telecoms, utilities.
Sci-Fi currently employs 50 people and plans to double the size of the company in 2017.
You know, it's an exciting time for drones, and the sky's the limit.
Ann Mostu, Bloomberg, Danvers, Massachusetts.
And Mostu there at the Sci-Fi drone test facility in Danvers, Massachusetts. And that does it for this edition of Bloomberg Technology. We've got a great lineup of guests tomorrow. Ryan Hoover, CEO of Product Hunt, will be joining us. Be sure to tune in. Also, we get our hands on the Snap Spectacles without having to stand in line for 6 hours. Jeremy Liu of Lightspeed, one of the earliest investors in Snapchat, stopped by, gave us a little turn. It was Snaptastic. Really, actually, it was pretty fun. Excited to share that one with you tomorrow. And remember, all episodes of Bloomberg Tech are live streaming on Twitter. We are at Bloomberg Tech TV, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. That is all today from San Francisco. We'll see you tomorrow. This is Bloomberg.